stimulus dollars. And this truly is a Good Friday as well, because we're ending the week in a very significant way. You know, when I campaigned from day one, we talked about how important it was to make public safety a top priority. We talked about making our streets safe and secure for the citizens of Sacramento. And even though we had a challenged economy, we made a commitment that we're going to go back to Washington on a regular basis, and we're going to make noise and shake trees and do everything that we could to get everything we could possibly do to get on their radar. And you know, the commitment that has happened so far has been very significant. Back in December, we were able to, through vacancies, be able to get 8 to 10 officers on the streets. That's more cops on the street back in December, which is very significant. In May, we were able to get a Homeland Security grant of about $600,000 for surveillance cameras. And then this Tuesday, again, the beginning of the week, we got $9.5 million from the DOJ, a COPS program, where we were able to hire, we will be able to hire 30 to 35 officers, which is critical in terms of our community. More officers on the street. That grant will be paid out over 3 years, so we'll get a little over $3 million for a 3-year period. And then today, we finally heard a grant that we applied for, I think, back in April, and we got a JAG grant, which is about $2.5 million, which is very, very significant for our community. I got these fine, distinguished officers here. I want to thank the Chief of Police, Chief Brazil, who's not here today, for his commitment of continually to apply for grants and look for opportunities where we can beef up our resources. We have Deputy Chief Summers here today. Thank you, as well as all the officers here today. This also would not happen without Senator Feinstein, Senator Boxer, and certainly Congresswoman Doris Matsui. So I want to thank all of them for being advocates in our community. One of the questions I get asked on a regular basis is, how does this impact the county? We were very disappointed that the county did not receive funds from the COPS program. I talked to the sheriff earlier in the week, and he was still, somewhat hopeful that the fiscal budget for the federal government is October. It might be a chance to revisit this particular program, the COPS program. But he was stunned, and so were we. And we as a police department here, as well as the sheriff, are going to find ways that we can work together. The bad news, unfortunately, is the sheriff's going to have to cut 130 some odd officers today and going into the weekend. And there's currently going to be no K-9 unit, SWAT, or helicopter. So, I mean, our department is working, our chief and the sheriff are working for ways that we can partner, continue to find efficiencies. Crime does not stop at city limits. Crime goes beyond city limits. We cannot look at this in a parochial way. But the good news also from the Sheriff's Department, they also received JAG funds of about $2 million. So that's going to be very good as well. Those funds will be spent on information technology network infrastructure, which allows us to refresh and improve our secure wireless and fiber networks. It allows those things to serve our 911 centers, our police stations, in-car cameras, and certainly mounted car computers. So all very, very significant. And I do want to say here before I bring the Deputy Chief up, these dollars were not budgeted. So these are additional dollars that go to our budget to allow us to equip our officers in some very, very significant ways. So I think today is another good day for the city of Sacramento as we continue to say we're not going to sit on our hands. We're going to make sure that our streets are safe and secure for the citizens of Sacramento. So if the Deputy Chief wouldn't mind coming up and sharing. Okay.
Well, first of all, thanks for coming out. And I look at this as a celebration for us. The mayor talks about thanks, and we couldn't have done this without the electeds, first of all. Second of all, we have other staff that we brought to bear on this that actually put all these grants together for us that we've had good results on. And without them coming together, we try to get the best and the brightest in our organization and come together to put all the grants that we've applied to out there. And so far, they've been very successful. So when we go back, we'll obviously be paying a debt of gratitude to those folks. The equipment that we got with this one is like giving the tools to our officers so they can do their job. Our information systems that we have out in our cars and the network is aging. It's about 7 years old, and anybody here have a 7-year-old computer that they've been trying to get on the internet? You can just imagine how difficult it is and how inefficient and effective it is. And with this, we'll be able to upgrade the infrastructure behind the scenes so that our officers will be able to get more information out to the cars and in the field to make them more efficient, more effective, and more responsive to the community they serve. In addition to that, we'll be able to have additional equipment to the officers that's going to go to them, and then improvement upon a training facility that we've been working on, but have not had the funds to finish off, and that is the bullet trap part of it that we're going to be finishing out at our range. And you know, a lot of people may want to ask, well, what does that have to do with stimulus? You know, what are you doing to stimulate the economy? Well, we have to purchase all this stuff. We have to hire folks that come in from the private sector to actually do the jobs that we're going to be required to get all this stuff done for us. Whether it's the information system upgrades, whether it's the bullet trap, or whether it's the taser. We're going out in the private sector, and we're going to be buying these things. So we are putting money back into play in the economy so that things are happening out there and people are able to be employed. Plus, we'll have stabilization of our budget here within the city by not having to use those funds to finish off these projects. So, again, I want to say thank you to our elected officials, because again, we have to give these men and women the tools that they need to do their job, and this is exactly what we're doing. So, thank you very much.
Thanks, Deputy Chief. All right, if you guys have questions, glad to address them.
Given the stimulus money from earlier this week and how this money might help alleviate your budget, what's the thought or the ability to hire laid off sheriff's deputies to fill positions within the police department?
So I think that's something that our chief and department are having conversations with and about. I think it's significant. As I said earlier, we are partners in this. I'm very glad that these JAG dollars were also received by the sheriff's department. This was a formula, so we both qualified and we both received those. As I said earlier, crime does not stop, you know, at city limits. So, you know, for us, you know, we have 27 officers, I believe, that have went through the academy, and I think we've already hired at least one officer, you know, since Tuesday. So we've got 27 officers or so that are kind of in the pipeline to be hired. But we certainly want to be open to communicating and talk about all these possibilities.
You also mentioned that the police chief and the sheriff are working together. Practically, what will come of that? Will the police department be kind of accepting more responsibility geographically, or is that not a consideration?
Yeah, I'll address a little bit of this, and if the deputy chief would like to as well. So, you know, when I got sworn in December, one of my first meetings was with both the sheriff and our chief of police. And, you know, I said, I campaigned, we've got to make public safety a top priority. We both have to work very well together. And I said, you know, if we have 2 SWAT teams, do we both need SWAT teams? We have 2 air patrols. We have 2 river patrols. We have 2 sets of everything. Does that have to be the case when you have a down economy? And I was assured by both of them. They're looking at ways, both departments, of consolidating and finding efficiencies. And at that particular time, they didn't say these are 3 things that we'll be able to do, but they said we're going to continue to dialogue to see if we can find ways that we can help each other. So when you find the sheriff's department having to cut out their K-9 unit and their SWAT and their helicopter, then those are units that we have. So we've got to find ways to protect the citizens of our region, of this county, and I think that's very clear. I think the other thing that I was told at that particular time is data systems and information. Those are things that we've got to do a much better job in terms of sharing going forward. And those are some things that I was told early were happening. We just started a 2-by-2 meeting between 2 elected officials from the city and 2 elected officials from the county. We had our first meeting yesterday here at City Hall. On the county side, it was Susan Peters and on the and Jimmy Yee. On the city side, it was myself as well as Steve Cohn. And we had the conversation. We had our executives, so I had Ray Carriage, they had Terry Shutton, and we talked about consolidation, like what can we do right now with the deficit that the county is being impacted, and certainly our community, and then you add that the state is taking dollars from local jurisdictions to balance their budget. What can we do right now to be smart? So they're dialoguing. We're having those, you know, significant conversations, and public safety came up. Because the question is, can you consolidate police and sheriff? No, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen practically. There's different standards. There's a host of challenges, but there's certainly things that we can do together to share and be much smarter. Do you want to add anything?
I think you nailed it.
He's whispered in my ear everything to say.
Well, will we see the city's SWAT team and the city's K-9 going into the county?